with my son, who's wearing his, and like the guy behind's like, oh, what's that beanie on his head, and what are those strings? And I'm like, okay, come on. But like, why not have a conversation? So sometimes I'll get into a conversation. It's interesting. What's going to happen? I'm sitting in a supermarket, like, right? Talk to people, tell, and you're sitting next to someone on an airplane for 2 hours, 10 hours. Talk to them, don't be that person though, like trying to listen to music or go to sleep. So tell me, but you want to get to know people. There's so many people in the world, and everyone has a story, and everyone's unique, and everyone has so much to share. So get to know people. It's nice to not close yourself off, and just to be able to talk to people and be able to get to know.
Use communication as a tool.
Yeah. It's just like, just thinking, like we were saying, I think in, I don't know where it's at, Devarim. I think it says in Deuteronomy, right? It says how you should not close off your heart, and you should not hold back your hand, I think, right? And it's saying, like, don't hold back your hand, don't close your hand. I mean, like, don't be stingy, don't be a stingy person. You have things, share it. And it says, don't harden your heart, right? So don't close your hand and don't harden your heart, right? So don't harden your heart means not to close yourself off emotionally from people. And you want to always be on the giving side of charity and of kindness and doing things for other people, and do what you can. And sometimes you don't have the money to do things, and you don't have the time to bake a huge meal, but small things like speech, there's so much you could do just by talking to someone and just asking how they're doing, and just send them a quick message, thinking about you, hope you're doing well, or a phone call, or this or that, right? And obviously now I'm feeling really guilty that I didn't call my grandmother enough. So, but all these things, you could do so many things and be there for someone without actually giving, financially or whatever it is. And a lot of times, people come collecting for different charities and stuff. And I see a man who's been through hard times, and his, someone's going through treatments for this, and his children that, and like, it's horrible. It's very sad. So you could, if we unfortunately are not able to give more than, we try to give what we can, but it's nothing like, life changing for this person. So I give what I could, but I always takes them in. We give them a drink, offer them coffee, water, but more importantly, I always opens the door and says, come in. And he has them sit down and talks to them and says, tell me what you're collecting for. I'm so sorry. That must be so tough. And just listens to them, and they just need to unburden and just have someone who just listens to them and understands them and just values them. I think that is more valuable than financially. You see people who even instead of relationships, they try to buy relationships. They use money to, it doesn't work like that. You have to invest, you have to listen to people, you have to talk to people, you have to communicate. And those are things people do it. Unfortunately, people throw money at their children, at friends. Those are not going to be lasting relationships. That's not what works. That's not what carries over. You have to, really be there for people when they need you. Otherwise, you end up and you're alone, and you wonder how you got there.
It's an amazing thing. The Talmud says, the Mishnah says, the first chapter of Pirkei Avot, of Ethics of Our Fathers, it says that one of the sages said, my whole life I grew up among the sages, among the wise, and I've never found anything that is more beneficial than silence, right? Just keeping our mouths shut, listening to other people, opening up our ears, closing our mouth. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means we should be listening double what we speak. And it's a very, very fundamental principle. Say a little, but do a lot. And it's interesting that we're living in a political climate where everyone is making promises of certain things, but it's very rare that we find people who actually fulfill the promises, those who actually do what they say. And it's interesting that the Mishnah also tells us about Abraham. It says, be like Abraham. Why? Abraham said a little and he did a lot. In next week's Torah portion, we see that Abraham is visited by the angels. And he says, I'm just going to get you some bread and some water. And what did he do at the end? He slaughtered animals for them. He brought them tongues. He brought them all of the finest delicacies of the world. right? He brought them, even though he only said he's getting them bread and water. Say a little bit, do a lot. And I think that's one of the great gifts we need to use when it comes to speech, is to not limit our actions, to not limit our words, but to outdo our words with actions. Talk is cheap. We need to learn to promise and to deliver. It's something that I'm working on very, very strongly the last several months, is that many times in a meeting, someone will say, oh, can you send me that file? Can you send me that document? Can you send me that? And I try to do it immediately, right? Just give me 10 seconds. I'm going to have this. I'll send it right now, because otherwise later I know I'm going to forget, and I don't want to be one, right, who promises and doesn't deliver. I want to be someone who promises and delivers. And let me deliver it immediately so I don't forget. It doesn't get pushed off to later. So we have to know ourselves. We have to know what our strengths and weaknesses are, and so that we can properly promise and deliver. There's also the idea that they say about law. In American law, when they teach you how to become a lawyer, right, you need to understand your opponent's perspective. You need to understand their rationale. Because if you don't understand their rationale, there's no way you can beat them. There's no way you can beat them if you don't understand their rationale. I think it's so true and so fundamental in the world we're living in today, right? We have to learn to see other people's perspective. Whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, go out with someone who believes opposite of your perspective, and just understand their perspective. You don't have to agree. You don't have to be best friends with them. Just understand that there's another perspective that someone else lives by, and appreciate it. Appreciate that there's a different perspective. So we've spoken about this in the beginning when we did, I think, way number 3 or way number 4. We spoke about the power of speech and the power of, we spoke about richat sfatayim, which means to verbalize things. We spoke about speaking. But there's another, the value here of this 20th step is having effective speech. Effective, meaning you schmooze, get something good out of it. Get a takeaway from a conversation. We should utilize the speech that we do communicate in a positive and an effective way.
Positive and effective and good. So I think part of this is also, saying to use our words wisely and to say good things. A lot of things that people say are just. We were just with someone recently, and they were saying things that were just not appropriate. And I was just like, and he's like, oh, with all due respect, or, talking about how, like, you can't talk about this in front of the Robertson, or, and people say things and it just becomes so normal to just talk a certain way. And people say things that are just so
crass,
vulgar and crass, and use their mouths to just, it's like, it became like normal language, just like certain curse words are just like normal language now. And it's just like, if we lose that sensitivity, if people get used to, I was just with like a little kid who dropped a little word there, and everyone was laughing. That's so funny. That's so cute. And
it's not.
It's really not cute. It's not funny. It's terrible. That means this kid is surrounded by people who are talking. Kids pick it up. So what you say, the words you use, you put out positive vibes, you say nice things. Your kids soak that up. People around you soak it up. And when it's normal talk or normal locker room banter, right? These things are not normal. They're not appropriate. People should not talk a certain way. Like you kiss your mama with the same mouth or whatever, right? It's like, how about you talk to God with that same mouth? You can't talk a certain way and be inappropriate and say certain things and act a certain way, talk a certain way, and then like, oh, it doesn't work. It's weird. It doesn't work like that, right? We have to use our words well. We have to say positive things. We have to, speech. When we're saying again, like, even though this is called limited speech, so we're not saying like everything else, like balance, right? So we're not saying don't talk or talk less. I mean, yes, talk less, but use it effectively and listen more, and not just, have someone on the phone and you just put them on speaker and you're just doing whatever. Yeah, and you're not really listening to them and you're just doing your own thing and they totally ignoring them. Sit there, listen, talk, but have good, effective, nice communication. Sit with your kids. We're all so busy. We don't take the time. The kids are getting bigger. Life, moves on. Sit down. Just sit and just schmooze. Sit on the couch. Sit outside. Go for a walk. Talk to people. There's so much in their cute little heads. When you wait for them to say it, it's like you really get to see what's in there. And it's very interesting. And we have to really take the time to, like, just listen to people and to just, I don't know, just there's so much we can learn from so many people, and we just need to stop and listen and learn from people, and how we talk defines who we are. And if we say, like Aryeh was saying, talk about bad things, I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, great minds discuss ideas and average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. And those people who just sit around and just talk about everyone else and just talk about like stupidity all day. Of course, you want to chill and have a good time with your friends and talk about, but you have to realize we're limited on our time, we're limited on our speech, and use your time and use your words and use them properly. When you see someone, like I could see someone dress a certain way, everyone's allowed to dress and act whatever, however they want. And we try not to judge people by the way they dress but when someone talks a certain way, it's hard not to judge them. When someone talks in a vulgar tone, it's very hard to take them seriously, to respect them. So we have to realize that we, our words are very strong. They're very powerful.
It's interesting that the Talmud says that when children speak in the marketplace, you could know they heard those words at home, right? When a child speaks a certain way, whether it's nice or whether, God forbid, it's the opposite, they heard those words at home, because we are all influenced by our surroundings. And there's nothing more influential to a child than their home, than the house they grow up in. And when they hear nice, kind, sensitive words from their parents, from their those that are their examples, from their influences, then they also have that's what they talk, that's what they speak, and that's the values that are imbued into them. So like we said previously, communication is what distinguishes man from the animal kingdom. When we talk, when we properly communicate in a respectful and in an honorable way, we're distinguishing ourselves from the animal kingdom, and we should use this unique ability to our best advantage, to find the positive in other people, to say the positive about other people. Right?
If you have nothing good to say, don't say it. Limited speech. I'm done. I have nothing to say.
Yeah. All right. So if there's any questions, we'll take the questions now. I see that we had, for the first half hour, we were not being recorded on Facebook. I was wondering why it wasn't popping up on my phone. So I was able to record it a little bit later. But if anyone has it, you're welcome to unmute your microphones and to ask any questions you have. To those of you on Facebook and YouTube, I apologize that the first half of the class was cut off. We didn't have it broadcasting live, so I apologize for that.